Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-5 opens with the line, "All of this happened, more or less. The war parts, anyway, are pretty much true." Davey Wreen's The Beginner's Guide opens in a very similar way, immediately pulling back the curtains and telling you that the story is non-fiction. Hi there. Thank you very much for playing The Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Wreen. I wrote the Stanley Parable.
And while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011.
And yes, if you know Reed, you likely know him as the writer of the Stanley Parable. The Beginner's Guide is a video game that was released in 2015. That's one of the many differences it has with the book Slaughterhouse-5. That one line is what they have in common. But a key point in The Beginner's Guide is this. In that first line, from the very beginning, Davey's lying to you. The Beginner's Guide is a story about the narrator, named Davey Wreen, bringing you through a collection of games made by his friend Coda. The game challenges the viewer to determine who Coda is and how Coda is doing based on the games that he made. Meanwhile, Davey gives his interpretation of the work. He tells you what he thinks each game represents for Coda. It's important to talk about the surrounding context of a work to see how it could have influenced the creation of it. Davey's previous game, The Stanley Parable, was a smash hit, winning several awards and being generally considered one of the best story games of 2013. Years later, he talked about it in a speech at Alto University.
Nothing. I had less than nothing to give. I felt like less than a person. So here's what happens when you have less than no energy. Normally, I'm someone who enjoys socializing, being around good friends, and making regular communications with people in my life. Suddenly, in the weeks after launch, I disconnected myself from everyone. I didn't even realize I was doing it.
The launch of the Stanley Parable had drained Reedon and severely impacted his mental health. So, 2 years later, he took those feelings he had and compiled them into a video game. And that's how he sees the work nowadays. A little snapshot of him in his 20s, caught in amber. While there is no assuming the feelings Reedon had in his 20s, one comes out through The Beginner's Guide. The idea of taking someone's work, analyzing it, and then applying it to its author. The game is openly deceptive. Davey, the narrator, modifies the games without telling you. But secondly, more importantly, the entire game hooks you on the idea that Davey, the narrator, is Davey, the real-life human being, giving you a real story about Coda, the real-life human being's work. This is a lie. The work is mostly fiction, but it leads the viewer to make the same assumptions about Coda's life that many did about Davey Wreen when the Stanley Parable was released. In that way, The Beginner's Guide is not deceptive in the shock value twist sort of way, but instead it's able to use deception to give a new perspective on its central idea. The Beginner's Guide is the type of media that makes people rethink what art can be. And no, I don't just mean that on the level of...
Well, actually, what if video games are art?
After playing the game again and again, again and again, I learned that every medium has a way of conveying a message, of conveying a story. The symbols and themes that are portrayed in a book don't come off the same way as they would in a drawing, in a song, or in a video game. And for The Beginner's Guide, the player has a far more pronounced role than the reader of a book or the viewer of a drawing. When a game lies to you, then reveals its lies at the end, it hits the player as hard as it does the characters, as it feels like their decision to trust, their decision to do what they were told to do. When it comes to deception and storytelling, that impact is far more devastating when you're the one pressing the keys.